video. More. Let's see. Let's see. Recording. All right. Share. Yes. Recording. That's
All
better.
right. Well, welcome one and all to those here in real time and those who are watching later by video. I am Jenny Teed with the Michigan Unitarian Universalist Social Justice Network, and I'm excited to invite Max and Jennifer in to join us for a conversation and sharing around energy and energy democracy and other environmental justice things that we are involved in as individuals and climate justice organizers and people that work behind the scenes to make sure that those things happen, and also church folk. As Max shares, he'll share a little bit about his connections to church and congregations, and I'm excited about how we all might build together around more stuff as we move forward. So some of your wheels might spin as they did as I got to know Max and talk to he and Jen to prepare for this together. So I'm really excited to have you all. I'm going to start by formally introducing Max, who'll speak first about what's going on at the organization where he works, Soulardarity. He can give us a good pronunciation when he introduces the org. And then we'll hear from Jennifer Young from Michigan Interfaith Power and Light. And some people have heard about their org and what they do and might be learning some new things about some things that they've been involved in recently. So thank you for joining. I'm going to read a little bit about Max's org and himself. Soulardarity is building energy democracy in Highland Park, Michigan, and our neighboring communities with education, organizing, and people-powered clean energy. We are working to install solar-powered streetlights, save residents money on energy bills, and with our neighboring communities, build a just and equitable energy system for all. Soulardarity is a membership-based 501c3 nonprofit, and our board is elected by our members and must be a majority of Highland Parkers. Oh, I like Highland Parkers. I've never heard that. And I appreciate, as I was reading that, those are definitely Max's words and words of the organization, which we are not yet a member of their coalition, but it's something to explore deeper. Max Boyd joined Soulardarity in 2023 and is the Highland Park coordinator for Soulardarity, but has been involved in the Highland Park area since moving here from Chicago in 2019, serving as the youth pastor of Revival Tabernacle, also in Highland Park, Michigan. He has a desire to shed light on Highland Park in both the literal, spiritual, and emotional. I love that. His program area focuses on bringing in 10 new solar-powered streetlights to Highland Park, shaping a program to dole out home repair, weatherization, and solar directly to residents, and collaborating with Highland Park-based organizations doing similar work. He continues to be a youth pastor at Revival Tabernacle, and his spare time, he enjoys friends, good food, and great music with his wife. Thank you for joining us, Max.
Well, thank you for that introduction, and thank you, Jenny, and to Mushin, who Soulardarity is a trip of a pronunciation, but when she said Mushin for the first time, man, that is a shortcut I did not see coming. I'm gonna be honest. So it is Soulardarity. It's a play on like 5 different words, so have fun. We've heard it pronounced a million different ways. And so I'm super excited to be here, y'all, and I hope to give you a little bit more of an engaging conversation on the topic of energy democracy and Soulardarity, Highland Park, and Detroit, and all of that good stuff. So Soulardarity got started in 2011. In 2011, well, it got started in 2012, but in 2011, a very important thing happened. DTE, the big energy company that a lot of you are familiar with, came into Highland Park. And they said, you have a debt that you need to settle. And in order to be able to settle that debt, they decided upon removing all of the street lights inside of Highland Park. And no, they didn't just turn them off. They physically came into the city and ripped out every single street light. Over 1,200, I believe, is the number, street lights. As you can imagine, that wasn't just settling a debt. And most residents didn't find out about this until the crews were out there grabbing them. It can be extremely traumatic. It's left the entire city in the dark. And it is a symptom of something that has happened for a long time, which is that DTE, other organizations, and other people have continually trod upon Highland Park. And so Soulardarity got started in 2012 with the idea of, hey, we're going to bring these things back and we're going to make them solar powered. We're going to make them community led. We're going to do this thing, even though DTE did that. And so how many of you, and you know, I don't have slides, but you guys have to understand, I'm a youth pastor too. So I'm big into object lessons, if you haven't figured that out. So we're gonna, this is an onion. I hope that you've cooked with one before. This is an onion. It was just like an onion. Soulardarity was like an onion. As soon as we peeled back that layer of like, hey, let's bring back the solar powered streetlights, there was another layer waiting for us. It was like, oh man, we gotta get involved in this local government. That means, and we got to peel back another layer. Oh man, that means we got to get involved at the state government level. Oh, let's peel back another layer. Oh my goodness, there's a ton of things going on with these residents and their houses and the energy bills. Oh, we peeled back another layer, and every layer, just like an onion, it also stank. Every single layer we peeled back, it stank, and we were committed in each layer that we peeled back to be able to fight for the things that were in front of us. So when we peeled back that layer, we weren't like, oh my goodness, this is too far beyond our pay grade. We're like, well, let's get our sleeves, you know, let's roll up our sleeves, let's get dirty. And so now in 2024, we are involved in so many layers. After peeling back all of these layers, we realize that there's a common thread that runs through all of these areas, and that is energy democracy. Energy democracy, the definition at its most simplest is that those who are the most affected by energy decisions should have the most say in how their energy is produced and delivered. It's not a groundbreaking idea, but according to some, it actually is. But one that shifts us from the current notion that we're currently involved in. And so Soulardarity now is led by our wonderful executive director, Shamika Nichols. It's a Black-owned, Black-led organization, and we are continually championing Highland Park. And if you're not familiar with Highland Park, let me just give you a little bit of a blurb. The city of Detroit is like a circle, and Highland Park is like right here. So it is a I don't want to say suburb of Detroit. It's literally inside the Detroit circle. So it is in the inner city of Detroit. And so when we first discovered and purported this idea of an energy democracy, we're not the ones that discovered it, but we're the ones who started to purport it. We created what's called the Blueprint for Energy Democracy. Blueprint for Energy Democracy. I think about this like I think about our Bible. It's Soulardarity's Bible. It divides our areas of work into 5 categories, and more often than not, all of our work falls into one of these categories. So I am, and again, I already told you this once, but I'm a youth pastor, so I'm used to interaction, or else my students will fall asleep. Period. The end. And I'm willing to admit, as an adult, I've been on many a call at that 6:30 to 8:30 time slot, and I'll be dozing off. So I'm going to ask for a little bit of, throw up an emoji or throw some things in the chat for a second. I'm going to walk you through these 5 areas of work as quickly as I can and give you a little bit of an example that we're working on now. And every time I do, I'm going to have you put a word or a phrase or an emoji if you want, word or phrase or something if you want to in the chat. Once you think about something your brains go to. So I'll give you an example. The first tenet of the Blueprint for Energy Democracy is accountable government. Accountable government. So you can put any word or phrase that comes to your head when you think about the idea of accountable government while I dive into this aspect of our work. As I mentioned, as we peeled back the layers of our work, we got involved at a local, regional, state, and national levels of being involved in accountable government. We have done many a work stopping rate hikes, intervened and protested at all levels of government. We've been involved in, we're currently working with the Abrams Law Clinic to stop the current rate hike that DTE is pursuing. Side note, I just found out about this today. Today, they are having a public hearing. The MPSC is having a public hearing in the city of Detroit on September the 18th to hear public comment on DTE's new rate hike. So we're actually coalescing, hopefully quickly, some people to get there and fill that high school auditorium so they know that we are definitely not okay with that. In the 2002-2003 time zone, we were intervening in what's called an IRP. That's an integrated resource plan. It's complicated in my brain, but basically the way that I like to think about it is that DTE went to the MPSC and they were like, hey, here's our plan to make things better. And we got involved in the legal process. We're like, hey, you're forgetting about some folk here, some lower income folks, some Highland Park people up here. And we eventually settled for $8 million that'll be divided between Soulardarity and We Want Green too. More on what this money is used for in just a second. So that's our first blueprint for energy democracy. We are about accountable government. Number two, we're about healthy homes. Healthy homes. You can put a word, a phrase, an emoji, something in the chat that reminds you of healthy homes. We peeled back layers and then we were like, hey, these homes and these people that are in these older homes in Detroit, these old Highland Park homes, they're old, but that doesn't mean that energy justice should pass them by. They usually get forgotten about because there's a lot of things that need to happen with these homes to bring them up to speed to be fully healthy. But this takes shape like first in July, we did a round of utility assistance, direct utility assistance. People in Highland Park could say, hey, this bill is insane. I'm moving towards a shutoff notice. They would let us know and we would pay the bill. $87,000, over 90 people were helped across energy, gas, internet, phone, and water bills. Healthy homes means affording food. It means affording internet. It means not choosing between putting food on the table for your kid and keeping the lights on. One elderly woman told us that her grandkids lived with her and she has had no power in her home for 1 whole year, an entire year without power. And she cried, saying that she never thought that she would see the day that it was back on. And we were super excited to be able to help her with that. That's one element of healthy homes. Another element of healthy homes, that $8 million that I told you about is specifically earmarked between the 48203, that's Highland Park, area code, and the east side of Detroit with We Want Green too. It's for home repair, weatherization, electrification, and solar directly to residents over the next 4 years. And hopefully we're going to leverage that money to get even more. And the program will continue to expand. But our goal is to get direct help to what residents so that we can lower what's called the energy burden. The energy burden is the percentage that energy bill makes up of your monthly expenses. We're hoping to lower that for most people. So that's number two. That's healthy homes. That's what a lot of our different things comes into play. And my wonderful friend Raphael is dropping so many of our wonderful links in the chat as well. Number three is jobs and careers. Jobs and careers. You can put a word, a phrase, an emoji in the chat if you think about it when it comes to jobs and careers. We're committed to seeing new organizers come to light. That's why we work with partners and organizations that uplift sustainable jobs in our zip code. And people, again, that green energy is a great idea, and a lot of people can agree with that. But there's so many places where people get significantly left behind. And one of those areas is lower income, usually BIPOC communities like Highland Park. And so we take initiatives to be able to partner with a lot of different organizations that bring those jobs back, that train people up in green energy jobs. And there was called the Rise Up training. I'm trying to remember. The Rise Up training was a training initiative intentioned for that, to be able to install solar and get a job in the solar sector installing solar. We work to uplift BIPOC contractors and organizations as we go forward with a lot of our home repairs and different things like that. That is what we like to see when it comes to jobs and careers. Number 4, I'm almost done. Number 4 is equitable development. Equitable development. You can put a word or phrase in the chat that comes to your mind when it comes to equitable development. This area is divided into a lot of other areas. First and foremost is the one that comes to mind for me is physical equitable development. Physical equitable development. That means a little while ago, we partnered with the Midwest Renewable Energy Association. I think that's what it is, MREA. And we got, no, I'm wrong. Raphael, please help me out, my friend. The folks that we partnered with for CLEAP, the Energy Laboratory. And there's a wonderful horn going off outside my apartment building. So I apologize if you can hear that. We partnered with the MREA and CLEAP. CLEAP was Communities Leap. And basically, it was the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. Thank you, Raphael. It was an ability for us to partner with a federal organization to give us technical assistance to be able to arm us with information that is typically only held by people like DTE. So they came in and they gave technical assistance to be like, hey, this is the technical abilities of your grid. This is why your grid is different than other people's grid. This is why in Highland Park, there is a power outage for 5 to 6 days, when in Royal Oak, it'll get fixed in 5 to 6 hours. This is why, and to be able to understand why a lot of these different things were happening. And we have the power, we have information that typically only other people have. This also looks like physical equitable development in community solar, advocating for community solar, the ability to be able to have solar energy, be able to provide energy for a lot of people, not just one that you're going to slap on your roof. The second way equitable development works is in education. We educate our residents in the ability for them to be armed with the knowledge that they can take out into other areas that, again, a lot of other people already have access to. We teach about the Just Transition Workshop. We had that this year, which is an ability to move from these extractive practices of corporate greed and move towards a just transition and how we can be a part of that. In the month of August, we just had an organizer boot camp where we trained residents to be able to say, this is how you organize. This is how you affect change. You do this and you do that and you grab this and you grab that and you can power all of these different things. We have volunteer orientations. A little while ago, one of my favorite events of the year was in the month of May. We partnered with the Sugar Law Clinic and the Michigan Environmental Justice Coalition for people to have a Know Your Rights DTE campaign. They were able to come and they were able to learn exactly what their rights are when it comes to shutoff notices, bill pay, what it looks like to be able to, if you can't afford those bills. And they got direct help from a lawyer on site to be able to apply for programs at the state level and local level to be able to lower that energy bill. It was awesome. Number 5, and my final one, is the sustainable infrastructure. Sustainable infrastructure. You can put a word or phrase or emoji in the chat for this. And again, this is broken up into a couple different areas. So hang on just for one more second. I hope that you're not completely tuning me out. Sustainable infrastructure means you're not going alone. One of our biggest lifts is being involved in so many coalition partner and justice spaces, because we know in this space as well, all y'all know, you go together, you don't go alone. If you want to go far, go together. If you want to go fast, maybe go alone, but we want to go far. And that provides sustainability. We're involved in so many coalition spaces that I could rattle off right now. And it's funny, when I first joined the organization, I was like, I think the nonprofit space has too many acronyms. I think that's one of our Achilles heels. There's so many. I could rattle off 1 billion of them right now. But we're involved in so many of them because we believe in going together. We really do. The second way sustainable infrastructure looks is a reimagined energy for communities. While the ultimate goal is a brand new grid, renewable excess energy, we do what we can now. It means supporting resiliency hubs. Resiliency hubs, if you've never heard of those, are hubs where the energy is green. The places are working to be able to get towards more renewable energy by themselves and be able to be a beacon of light and help for the community. And we're also moving towards having one of our own, hopefully in the future. It also means looking for emergencies too. This summer, we provided cooling kits to survive blackouts. If Royal Oak goes out, I mentioned this before, if Royal Oak power goes out, it's out for about 2 hours. In Highland Park, it's out for about 4 days. So we put together these cooling kits. We got a grant to put together these cooling kits that had battery power fans, solar powered energy power banks. That's the word I'm looking for your phone, water bottles, electrolytes, all of these different types of things. And lastly, sustainable infrastructure means physical sustainable infrastructure. As I stated at the very beginning, we got started because DTE came back and repossessed all the streetlights. We have not abandoned that initial goal. We are still having a desire to. To this date, we have installed 17 solar-powered streetlights inside of Highland Park. We are aiming for 10 more to go this year. And we have partnered with Revival Tabernacle, which is actually this happened before I was on staff at Soulardarity, but their partnership is with Revival Tabernacle, which is also the place where I pastor. So we partner with them as a beacon of light within the community, and we go back to the principle of energy democracy. The people most affected get the most say, even in our organization. We don't stride forward without our members. It's why we say in every single mission statement and everything that I ever write, we are member-based. We always will be. We realize that when we get behind people, we help people. When they get to talk for themselves, they get to help. And even take a step back. If Revival Tabernacle has a relationship with the community, then we partner with them. If we help them, then we help the people. And that is true energy democracy. And it is exactly what Jennifer and Michigan Interfaith Power and Light will be taking the baton and kind of talking about, getting behind, houses of worship to be able to eventually get behind those people. I don't know if we're in this spot yet, Jenny, but I'm going to say that my ask to you tonight is threefold. Number one is to become a member of Soulardarity, both as an individual or as an organization. We do have an organizational membership tier that we would love for you guys to get involved in. You can be a part of voting for our board. You can be involved in all of our membership meetings. You can be involved in all of our different events, get access to certain things, volunteer. All of that wonderfulness happens when you become a member of Soulardarity. Number two, and for those that are outside of Highland Park, it is just $25 a year. I'm serious. $25 a year is manageable for most. For an organizational membership, I believe it's $100 a year. But and number two, if you can do more than that, is become a sustaining donor. Become a sustaining donor. There's an ability to be able to do, hey, if you got an extra Starbucks a month, $5 a month to be able to help us out on a consistent basis, it helps way more than you could ever possibly imagine in our community. Number three, and I'm just going to put this out there because it's going to be a great time, and we just got done with the planning meeting for it. We have our year-end gala that we're having. It's going to be a sneaker ball. It's going to be a blast on December 6th. You can purchase tickets to come out to that. You can also, it'll be awesome. We'll have great food. We'll have dancing. We'll have a lot of different stuff. We'll be obviously raising money. We're planning on having a silent auction. And there's also sustainable donor tiers on that for that evening as well. So I talked a lot. I've been told I talk fast as well. And so I apologize if I tripped up anything. I will obviously be available for answers. And there is a lot more that Soulardarity is involved in. But we're looking for the justice and equitable treatment and development of all people inside. But our specific focus is on the people that have usually been forgotten in Highland Park, Hamtramck, and Detroit area. So that is Soulardarity. That is me. I hope I didn't talk your ear off. I hope I didn't bore you too much. And I will turn it over to our wonderful facilitator, Jenny, to hand the baton over to Jennifer.
Next, thank you. Awesome. I see some claps going on out there. A lot of participation in the chat. What a great idea. And also thank you to Odessa and Raphael for continuing to throw in all kinds of important follow-ups about the things that Max was talking about. I need folks like you on my team. That's what I'm always like, yay, when there's somebody available to help throw in those things. And you guys were right on it. I think it also just shows the support with Odessa and Raphael about kind of what's going on at Soulardarity. Like Max talking about all these great things, but then there's other folks showing up. You know, it's like this teamwork, and different people are having and throwing the ball. And I look forward to Mooshin and more UU connections. We were saying a little bit at the very beginning how exciting it is that our denomination, the Unitarian Universalists, are hosting many of our churches around the nation climate justice revivals the last weekend in September, and that the president of our organization is going to be speaking at the Ann Arbor congregation that weekend as part of their celebration. Another exciting thing that's happening that weekend is happening in Highland Park, and it's the Michigan Environmental Justice Coalition's Climate Justice Summit in person at Highland Park. And we'll throw some information about that into the chat, and I'll also follow up with that in emails to get both of those informations if you want to get to those things. Lots of exciting things are coming up. I also just really wanted to thank Odessa and Raphael and Max and folks from your org for being open to dealing with the stanky layers. I really liked how you put that. Yeah, there's a lot of stanky layers in justice work, and the way that you broke them down and are not only willing to do them, but willing to admit that you're doing them, you know, that somebody's got to do this dirty work. And as I talk to some of my comrades in environmental justice and justice circles, some people are turned away by that dirty work. That dirty work is hard work. That dirty work, you often don't see the wins from that work. But it still can be fun to work on a team like I can see Max and Raphael and Odessa do. And I don't know anything about your roles, Odessa and Raphael, but the fact that you're showing up in this, you know, team space, there's also just so much joy that comes with this work, and relationship building and fun that keeps us moving forward. So thanks, Max, for always having that onion. And I love that it's a red onion. Those are my favorite. So if I ever need one, I'll know where to come.
Absolutely.
I wondered if anybody, while what Max said is fresh in people's head, let's open it up right now for a little bit of question and discussion. The other thing that I haven't mentioned yet that was exciting to talk to Max about is that not only is the climate justice happening in Ann Arbor, well, as like a key congregation with our president coming there, but that it also the climate justice UU revival also has a list of organizations around the country that they're recommending UU churches give their plate collection to. And in Michigan, it is Soulardarity. It is the only one that is listed currently. So that also is just really exciting for me to see as I'm helping make these connections, that it's always exciting for me to help make connections, but also to see where the connections already are. You know, it's just like this true web, and it just keeps you know, growing like strand by strand, and it's just exciting to watch. As I was sharing that with Max, I was asking Max if he knows anybody in Ann Arbor, and he said no, but I just heard from somebody from the Birmingham UU church, and maybe that's how they found out about us, was from that list, and they're looking to give a plate collection. So it's just really exciting how things come together. Before I enter, so any questions or thoughts for Max that come up right away? It's obvious the org is doing an awful lot of work. Mary Jo, jump right in.
Yeah, I have a question, Max. I'm curious to know whether you've been able to get any funding through the federal infrastructure bill. I'm thinking with the solar component that would be just a great project to be funded through that program.
Yeah. So I'm actually since he's here and since he went on screen, I'm gonna turn that over to Raphael, that I did not know was gonna be here, but he knows a little bit more about our funding opportunities. And so I'm gonna leave it to him to answer that question.
Me poking my head, just saying, you know, did anybody say federal funding? Somebody say federal funding? Yeah, so probably like what you're referring to is the slew of packages of bills, more prominently, you know, like the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, even though it didn't really have anything to do with reducing inflation, but that hasn't stopped us to collaborate with the city of Highland Park, as well as other like organizations within the city, either continued partnerships with Avalon Village, Parker Village, and then also with just transition organizations that are focused on J40 initiatives to get us in touch with various different kinds of resources that are either coming directly from the federal government through the IRA or through funding that is trickled down to the state. So we have put in an application for federal funding that was channeled into the state of Michigan for 100 new streetlights. We might have to make adjustments with our application to reduce that goal, but it's in a weird way, it's a good it's a good sign because they're seriously considering our application. And then also there is a grant called the Community Change Grant that is also coming from the federal government, but is being mainly facilitated through the state as well. That is going to be going towards infrastructure implementation kind of projects. So, you know, short answer, yes. We like the Communities Leap partnership that we just finished not too long ago, but are still kind of softly being included in the second cohort just to be like the folks to give the new cohort advice and pointers from our experience is you know, we are now kind of like sick and tired of technical assistance and we want to get implementation. And that's what the Communities Leap program has helped us to do. So I did put in the chat the website for Highland Park's participation with Communities Leap. And in that website, there is a section where it has resources that were produced in the form of technical assistance analysis reports in 5 areas. For example, one of them being our founding mission, which is streetlights. And to help us, you know, explore a little bit on a higher technical, but not higher, but less higher technical level on how to create a citywide streetlight plan for renewable energy options. And that is going to help us leverage for more funding. So some of you who have probably filled out a grant or an application for money, they're going to ask you, what's your plan? Do you like, what's your mission and what's your budget looking like? You know, what kind of money do you need? And this is going to help us do that.
Thank you, Raphael. I'm glad that you're here for multiple reasons. And feel free to jump in whenever.
Quick question.
For more information.
You know, this is just a continuation of the money kind of question, but you mentioned you got $8 million, which is a pretty nice for pocket change. But was that part of the Inflation Reduction Act as well? Money coming down, or that was from some other source? Because sometimes the people who give you money, they make requirements on you. So that was part of my wondering.
Yeah. So this one still has requirements for sure, but this was as a result, and it's a little bit of a complicated process, but it was as a result of DTE went to the MPSC and they had an integrated resource plan. So they basically said, like, here's how we're going to make what we do better. And we legally intervened in that process and was essentially like, hey, you're forgetting some folks. And in the legal process, we received a settlement from DTE. So those dollars are coming from DTE, and it'll be $8 million over the next 4 years. But they are, I don't want to use the word autonomous. We will still have reporting requirements, but it is up to Soulardarity, and we want Green 2 to be able to implement that money for home repair, weatherization, electrification, and that for our respective zip codes. So, and we're also hoping that that money can be leveraged to get other dollars, because even though 8 million is nothing to you know, nothing to bat an eye at. And still, and funnily enough, once you start getting down to the brass tacks, it's still a drop in the bucket as far as like what we're able to do for the entire community. So we're hoping that that eventually leads to a lot more dollars that aren't necessarily tied to the reporting requirements that DTE has.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Not sure if you have an answer to this, Max, but roughly what is the cost to install one street light?
My wonderful friend Raphael, what do you think, man?
And I say I'm not sure you can answer that because it probably depends. If you're doing 10, it costs X. If you're doing 300, it costs Y.
Yeah, it really depends on, sorry, my wife was informing me that she found my water bottle that my neurodivergent brain was having a hard time finding today. So I'm very excited for the simple things. But speaking of not simple things that are not cheap, like water bottles, it depends on the kind of street light that you want to install. If it's like an actual street light with an arm reaching out and everything, you know, the traditional ones that you see in your neighborhood, that would cost you somewhere between $18,000 and $25,000. And that, I believe, includes installation. That is based off of what we have in terms of experience of contracted work with a firm called Solartonic, which is based in Ypsilanti. And they do work internationally as well, too. If you were to meet the owner, Harry, it would be undeniably, you know, obvious that he is British. So they've got some pretty good experience when it comes to sourcing manufacturers. But then also they do offer solutions for, say, like parks. And those usually come at like less than half the cost of what a street light would be. And these are all solar powered. And these also do include, this is like reflecting the cost of the spec that we have with the Wi-Fi nodes installed. So in addition to that, if you make an arrangement with an internet provider that that provides a service to those nodes, it will spill out free public Wi-Fi for the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the things that we tried to make sure was a part of our solar streetlights. Thanks, Raph.
That's awesome. Other questions?
I do actually want to add one thing in regards to the streetlights. So I did see some wide eyes when I mentioned $25,000. But keep in mind that despite the inferior quality of DTE's streetlights, these actually come at a much cheaper annual maintenance cost. So while you may be paying as a community more upfront, you are going to be saving way more money than you would have when it came to the monthly maintenance costs for DTE or your traditional grid tied poles. And that's because, you know, like frequently because that they're grid tied, they are impacted by that underground infrastructure. So like if you have to fix something that is attached to it, odds are you're going to have to fix something else that is attached to it as well. So it's like kind of almost like a dominoes effect of connected infrastructure. But since these are all independent, and also these are generally newer technology in terms of quality and materials, like most of the maintenance that is also can be done remotely as well too, because these are connected to a wireless network system that is all controlled through, you know, some sort of a microcontroller system, aka computers, and that your manufacturer can access as long as you have like a maintenance contract with them, again, which is way cheaper than what Highland Park historically paid DTE.
Well, thank you. thank you all for your information and your work. And a couple of things I just keep thinking about that Max said, that it's not like this is the first time I've heard these things, but it's still just so striking when you hear that there was a grandmother living without electricity for a year. You know, it's just like, wow. And I've heard similar things about water, and every time it's just like, but it's someone's reality. And those of us that are paying those bills know that they're expensive when we can afford them. And so it's just like, wow. And then the other thing that keeps coming back to me is DTE pulled the streetlights out of the ground. And I just think, can you imagine living in a neighborhood where you were that unvalued, that the electric company, that people who work for the electric company came and pulled the streetlights out of the ground? I lived a lot of my life in Detroit in neighborhoods where there were no streetlights for different reasons. Sometimes the people in the neighborhood shot the streetlights out because they wanted it to be dark, or it was fun. And then the DTE didn't replace them because they figured they were just going to be put out again. I protested in a neighborhood at Davison and Dexter for a few months when DTE turned off those lights to have those lights turned back on, and they had just decided, the city had decided it wasn't an area that needed to be lit anymore. But then to hear, you know, the streetlights actually being pulled up from the ground is just like a whole nother level of just like, ah. So the fact that Highland Park was able to organize themselves and start so small and grow, you know, I think about the onion being peeled off, but then I also think about this like layering of how you're able to do the amount of stanky layers you are now because of the way the community, Highland Park, has been able to organize themselves and bring in and connect to all these larger coalition and funders. And so grateful again to have you all here. We'll have some more time at the end if other people think about questions or connections that they want to make with Soulardarity. Randy, did you have something else?
It's a quick question, and it's kind of a dark question. But you know, when people don't have electricity, they can't stay cool. If they had air conditioning, they're not gonna. They could die from heat. So I guess I'm just wondering, has anyone documented how many people in Highland Park had really passed away due to not having their electricity on? And it might be other reasons than just the heat, but it just seems like that there's a high risk if it's getting up into the 90s, especially if you're an older person or having a serious illness. So I'm just asking that. And if you had the answer to that, that would be one more argument for saying, look, we need to continue to not just to save energy, but to save lives.
Yeah, I know that there's I don't have a number or statistics or if a study has been done on that, but the things that I do know is that there's a couple more things layered to even your question. It's not only the heat, but the winter time. And on top of the winter time, there's also the ability to, as Odessa and Raphael put in the chat, keep home medical equipment going or refrigeration for specific medicines or stuff like that. It's a big deal. And one of the things that I mentioned about that Know Your Rights DTE campaign that we were a part of with the Michigan Environmental Justice Coalition was being able for every single person to be able to know their rights. And if their rights were violated, getting them hooked up with a solid lawyer. So one of the things that I remember learning during that I did not know during that, but it makes complete sense, but I did not know that they cannot turn off your power if you are qualified as elderly from the months of, I believe it's the top of November to the end of March, I think, or however Michigan categorizes the month, like the winter time. But there's rules around that. And even within our small room of 25 people, there was a few people that said that they had experienced that and then reach out to DTE to put a complaint in. And then DTE is like, oh, sorry, missed it or whatever. So I don't know the answer to your question in terms of numerically, But I do know that that is a significant issue that we run into all the time. And it's one of those things that even when we get a lawyer involved, even when we reach out to DTE, they're able to just go, oh, oops, sorry, and flick it back on. But you still owe like this much. You still owe this much. You still owe this much. And then the other thing about that policy about the elderly, if it does hit April 1st, and that floodgate of bills comes in, they can shut off your power April 2nd. Like if you're not able to pay what the months were, which is it's just crazy. So we've learned that DTE is constantly in violation of rights, but you're absolutely right. It would be a phenomenal thing. One of the things that we talk about a lot at Soulardarity is the connection between energy and health, and how this is a health issue. It's not just hey, let's go green because it's a good idea. It's like this is a necessity for a lot of these folks. So fantastic question. I don't have a numerical value for you. I hope that answer wasn't too rabbit trailed for you.
Yeah, Jennifer put a good link to a film. The title is just, wow, speaks for itself. Cooked: Survival by Zip Code. It's focused out of Chicago. I also wanted to share, if you are unable to follow the chat, or if you're realizing there's just so much in the chat, that I will follow up to those of you that attended with all these links as well in an email, so it'll all be easy to find. Yeah, and Max said in many words, the first thing that I thought when Randy asked that question is if only somebody cared. If they cared, right, then we wouldn't even be having this problem. But certainly the numbers and the research can help to push things. Well, Jennifer's
Randy, in answer to your question, they've done a study down in the Phoenix area, and they've just come off 100 days of 100-degree plus weather, and there is an uptick in deaths in the last few years because of the temperature extremity. So if it happens there, it's going to be happening in other cities. And I recall when I was in social services, there was a problem with people who are on psychotropic meds. They don't feel the temperature change. So there were deaths, and then there was a push to make sure that these were people who were receiving care, with workers coming out to their houses and checking on them, giving their meds and making sure they were doing all right. And the death rates just dropped like a lead weight. So if you take care, if you're interested in keeping people alive and healthy, that's the kind of stuff you got to do in order to make it work.
Thank you. So much to think about. I want to keep us moving forward. Jennifer has some other important things to share and some connections to be made with things that have already been shared. I'll just take a minute to introduce Jennifer and her organization. Many of us know about Michigan Interfaith Power and Light. Some of our churches have worked with them for a long time, particularly learning about how to upgrade congregationers' buildings with solar. And I'm learning all the time about new things that Michigan Interfaith Power and Light is involved with. So stick around. Michigan Interfaith Power and Light's mission is to inspire and equip people of faith to exercise stewardship of love for all creation. We offer practical ways to put faith into action by promoting energy efficiency, renewable energy, and other sustainable practices that lead to a cleaner, healthier, and more just world. Michigan Interfaith Power and Light works statewide to gather and focus the immense grassroots power with Michigan's faith communities to help them become leaders in the effort to address climate change and environmental degradation. Jennifer Young is my friend and longtime comrade, who also is an energy programs manager with the Michigan Interfaith Power and Light, a nonprofit whose mission is to inspire and equip people of faith and conscience to exercise stewardship of love for all creation. In this role, she works with dozens of faith communities across the state to assist them in bringing earth stewardship into congregational life. Jennifer's primary responsibilities include working with 11 faith communities who were awarded $100,000 each to make their worship facilities energy efficient via a Sacred Spaces grant from the State of Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and energy. Additionally, she is working with 6 congregations who are participating in Michigan's Interfaith Power and Light in a grant from the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Development opportunity to enable them to better serve their communities as vital community resource hubs. Jennifer is honored by the opportunity to assist these congregations in creating a cleaner, healthier, and more just world. Thanks, Jennifer, for being with us.
Thank you so much, Jenny. And thank you, Max, for really laying the groundwork for how important it is to get involved in community. So that's where I see that Michigan Interfaith Power and Light comes in. I think you talked about Revival Tabernacle being a community partner of Soulardarity. We know that throughout history, every major social justice issue has been led by people of faith, from civil rights to women's rights. And now that movement of the moment is the climate justice movement, the way that we see it. I just wanted to take a minute and share my screen, and I just had a few slides to share you because I like to see pictures of the communities that we want to lift up. I think their work is so important and it's inspiring to hear from them. Like Jenny said, we were founded in 2002 by Father Charles Morris, a Catholic priest with the Detroit Diocese, who said there ought to be a faith voice when it comes to global warming. We now represent over 300 member congregations across the state, representing a diverse number of faith traditions and denominations. And I'm going to share with you some of the practical steps that folks have taken, but I really want to highlight how important it is to get involved in the systemic issues, because we know that it's important to change systems like what Max and Soulardarity have been talking about, and then also to bring what we're talking about into our congregational life, which, Jenny, it sounds like the UUs are doing through the Climate Justice Revival. So why is climate justice a faith issue? So just looking at Detroit alone, we're headquartered here, but we're statewide, but we're using Detroit because it's our home, we know it. So in the past couple of years, we've had 2 500-year floods. We've experienced the impact that has had in our communities. Storms like these are getting more frequent and more severe, and they result a lot of times in power outages, like just last week. So this is no longer an issue that's somewhere in another part of the world. It's right here in our backyard. And I'm sure if anyone has friends or family on the east side of Detroit, or even in other communities, you saw scenes like this after the severe flooding events where people had to get rid of family mementos and all kinds of things after their basements got flooded. And just last year we had wildfire smoke from Canada that affected our air quality here. Detroit was really, like, mentioned as one of the worst in the country because of this issue. So what happens elsewhere is definitely hitting home here. And are we prepared to support our communities in having clean air? And then, of course, we know about in our own backyards, for example, 48217 zip code, the most polluted zip code in the state. There are very clear correlations between that and childhood asthma, and other severe health impacts of the people who live literally in the backyard of these facilities. At the same time, the price of electricity is going up every year. It's pretty predictable that we know the cost of electricity will go up. And this slide is a holdover from a presentation I gave about our Solar Faithful program, but just to kind of, the main point I wanted to make here is that we know that the price of electricity is going up, especially with the rate increases that Max is talking about year after year. If you go solar, or if you generate your own power, you are in control of lowering those costs, stabilizing them, and maybe having a zero electricity bill. So I just wanted to give you a couple highlights of programs that we offer. This is not an extensive list, but just some highlights. So Trinity AME, the oldest Black church in Lansing, was actually the first Black church in mid-Michigan to go solar through a program we offer called Solar Faithful. We're partnering with an impact investor called Sunwealth, and they're providing all the upfront capital. All the congregation has to do is pay for it back through the energy they're producing, but guaranteed 10% less than what they would have been paying to the utility. And we're really excited for Trinity AME. Already they've saved over $600. But more than that, they're really an inspiration for their community. Another Solar Faithful congregation, Green Sky Hill Indian United Methodist Church in Charlevoix. Their panels just got installed a couple months ago. So we don't have even the numbers on that yet, but we're really excited for them because of the solar. They're now in a position to almost completely electrify their building, and that means they can get off of the propane that they have. And then here in our own backyard, I really wanted to share about this because Anita mentioning about University of Detroit Mercy hosting the Pioneers. So right next door, their neighbor is Jesuit Catholic Church and School. So the students said it better than I can. Due to the burning of fossil fuels, harmful gases are released into the air. We discovered that air pollution is the third leading cause of asthma. It's so important to go solar because it cuts air pollution that causes the asthma. 20% of Michigan citizens have asthma, 27% of Detroiters, and 40% of our Jesuit School Solar Club. All right, moving on to another initiative, Positive Energy. This is Pastor Calvin Glass with a trustee at Lord of Lord Missionary Baptist Church. They're located off of Chalmers on the east side of Detroit. They are the first Black church in Detroit to go solar through this pilot program. So essentially, we reached out to our community, our members and supporters, and said, hey, if you would like to pay it forward, here's your opportunity. So several members of congregations who had already gone solar, or some members where they wanted to go solar and their church wasn't for whatever reason, maybe because they didn't have the right south-facing roof, or maybe they didn't have the support of leadership, said we're going to contribute as an altruistic investors to make this happen. So we're really excited. Pastor Glass was sharing in a meeting I was in last week that before the solar panels, his bill was $350 a month from DTE, and since the solar panels, it's $50 a month. So it's not yet at zero. He's working on backup battery storage now as his next project through this Michigan Labor and Economic Opportunity Grant that Jenny had mentioned. So we're excited to support Lord of Lords in going off grid. And then I wanted to lift up the carbon fund. And I see there's messages in the chat. I hope to get to them at the end, but I can't read them at this moment. Anyway, the Carbon Fund is a fund that the Ann Arbor Quakers Friends Meeting established to tax themselves on their own carbon emissions, put them into a fund. They asked us to be the fiduciary. And every year we give out a mini grant. It's between $1,000 and $3,000. So not a lot, but it enabled Pilgrim Baptist Church, that's pictured here, to install 2 solar-powered LED exterior lights that illuminate the entrance to the food pantry. That was also done at St. Peter's over their Manna Meals entrance. And then here where you see on the right, Leah is again at Lord of Lords. It's really hard to see that street light, but it was the only picture I had. But Lord of Lords had called DTE and asked them to take out his lights because he couldn't afford it. So when he said he wasn't going to pay for it, they took out 8 of his parking lot lights. So he was getting complaints from members saying, hey, I'm not feeling safe to come to Bible study. And as you know, in the winter, it gets dark early, so that cuts out a lot of opportunity. So he applied for the mini grant. He got 8 solar powered parking lot lights installed by, we partnered with Whiter Cooperative Industries, well, they selected Ryder as the installer. Ryder is also based in Highland Park, and we were really excited for that. So that concludes my official presentation. There's a couple more things on the web I wanted to shout out, but I'm gonna have to stop sharing and then reshare, because these are events that are coming up. So okay, so Jenny talked about sharing links afterwards. I will share all these links with her. This is the link to Solar Faithful, the first program I mentioned. So if you're interested, just click here to go to the interest form, fill it out, and we'll get back with you. We just need 12 months of your electric bills if you're a DTE customer, or 1 month if you're a Consumers Energy customer, so we can help you understand what would be involved in going solar for your congregation. I also wanted to mention that, you know, as Max really underscored, and Raphael and all the Soulardarity folks, unless we change our systems, we really can't expect substantive change. But as people of faith, the good news is that when you lend your voice, it has an impact, because your community leaders and people listen to you. So we are partnering with Solar Faithful. That's invited Representative Rachel Hood from the state legislature and others to talk about the community solar bill that's currently being considered. So this is something where, you know, it failed last year. It could pass this year. It needs our support. So one inspiring example is the Shiloh Temple. Shiloh Temple is, I wish I could find where I had that here. They're basically a part of the Minneapolis Interfaith Power and Light, but they went about installing a community solar project, so the members of the community can be part of that and participate and benefit from the clean energy, and they hire all local people from the community to install and maintain the solar. So anyway, this could be possible here in Michigan. It's up to us to lend our voices and make that happen. So that's what that webinar is about. And then what I wanted to mention, we're hosting a working group. So Mary Jo had asked about the federal infrastructure bill, and Raphael responded about that. The more we talk to faith communities about this, the more we realize that folks really, unless they happen to already live in this climate justice space, they really don't conceive that a non-tax paying entity like a house of worship is actually eligible for tax credits to go solar, to install EV charging, and to buy backup batteries. I mean, this is unprecedented. It's really awesome, but if folks don't know about it, they can't take advantage of it. So we're hosting an informal working group. It's not meant, like, we're not saying we're the experts. We're just holding space for the dialogue. This one that's coming up next Tuesday is, we're inviting St. Philip's Episcopal. They are the first congregation, and actually the first anybody in Michigan, to apply for and fund their solar project using a bridge loan from Michigan Saves, which basically is to say, these tax credits are not promised to you right away. You could be, you know, it's the IRS and it's a tax credit. It could take up to 45 months, they say. So Michigan Saves is providing a bridge loan so that you can get that amount up front to help you fund your project. And we'll hear from a church that actually did that. And I just wanted to mention, because Jenny, you brought this up, we partner with anybody who wants to bring together the people of faith in their communities for positive change. So we have a capital area chapter based in Lansing, and they got together all of these congregations to fund a solar project at the Southside Community Coalition. So this is located in the low-income part of South Lansing, and that solar project actually inspired Trinity AME to go solar. So you never know where the impact of what you do and the inspiration that you create will go. Then I mentioned the Carbon Fund. I'll share that link, the mini grant. This energy resources for congregations is meant to allow any congregation just to get started. You might not be ready to go solar, able to save hundreds of dollars on your energy bills through energy efficiency. So we have a video about our Sacred Spaces program that Jenny mentioned, and then other resources. And we'd love for folks to check that out, take advantage of them. And then we'd love for you to stay in touch with us. So this is like where you sign up to get our newsletter, where we'll post resources, opportunities as we know about them. Here's positive energy that I mentioned, and I think that's actually it. I've covered everything I was going to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ooh, that was a lot. You both have so much to share. One of the questions that I'm going to close out with, I'll give you all a sneak preview, is I'm going to have both Jennifer and Max tell us how they find hope and joy in all of this mess, stanky layers that we are living in right now. And wow, just listening to all the things that you both are doing and your orgs and your communities and these congregations. If there's not hope there, like, where is it, right? So I'm going to let you go deeper into those answers for yourselves and stories, and maybe it doesn't have anything to do with the direct work that you're doing. Maybe you're finding it elsewhere as well, but it's so exciting. I was so excited to hear from Jenny about this carbon fund. And I was like, wow, how are the Quakers doing this? Can this be a model for UUs? This is wonderful. You know, and then it reminded me that I had heard about this Southside Community Coalition in Lansing, when the UU congregation in Lansing helped to install the solar there. And then I met Max and learned that his church is right down the street from BUC and the Detroit church, and thought, wow, how can we make some of these, you know, connections happen and webs continue to spin and grow right here in the Detroit metro area and around Michigan. I'm going to open up some space to ask Jen any direct questions in a moment. But before that, I just wanted to give you a sneak preview into what's happening next week. I hope you'll come back and join us next week. And Jennifer and Max, I'd like to give you, and I'd like to give Raphael and Odessa a direct invitation to join us again next week. And it would bring even more to have you participate in that dialogue that we'll all have together after we hear from Jesse, my good friend who works with CRAFT, Citizens Resisting Against Fermi 2, the Fermi plant down in Monroe, Michigan. And they just had a big win. And I'm going to, if you haven't heard about it yet, you can Google it, and he'll share, I'm sure, a lot more about that when he's with us next week and what their current focus is right now. We're also going to have Ian with us from Protect the Porkies, and he's doing some important work up in the UP, up there by Horst, with in the Porcupine Mountains and mining. And they also had what some would call an initial win, or a bit of a win up there. So next week, Ian will be talking more about what we can all do. Often when we organize in Michigan, we forget about the Upper Peninsula up there and how important they are as part of our state. And so we're going to hear what's happening up there. And then we're also going to hear from Teresa Landrum, who's a longtime, I think lifelong resident of 48217, known as the dirtiest zip code in the United States, where I taught for summer program this summer and got to know the community over there a little bit better. And one thing that Teresa and I and another friend that I ran into who's in that area were talking about, what a great community. With all that they're dealing with over there, there are layers of generations and generations and generations of people who have lived there and have family stories and connections. And I had a great conversation, sat down with Teresa for lunch a few weeks ago and learned some of the history of her neighborhood. And it's kind of where Delray and River Rouge and Detroit all merged together there, where there are like 54 or something manufacturing companies. We know about the Marathon refinery plant, but there's many other things happening over there too with steel and DTE. So join us next week, 6:30 for that. And I would like to see if anybody has any questions for Jennifer. She's going to share a lot of resources that I'll share out in email. There's a lot of details about some of the programs that she talked to that your congregations may be interested in. But what do you want to know more from Jennifer?
Jennifer, I saw a program where they, had the churches that went through the process of getting solar in their congregations, as you were showing tonight. And I was just wondering how much of a role does this IPL play in this, in terms of getting the churches started and empowering them into getting the solar setup that they need in order to cut down their utility costs.
Yeah. Well, our goal is more as a resource. We're a founding member. We're not Solar Faithful, but we are one of 3 partners that founded it. It now has its own 501c3 status, but I really suggest connecting with them, because you can avail yourself of the technical and financial expertise. Our goal is to make this easy for congregations. We're not going to tell you ever who to choose as your solar installer. I mean, we will definitely do whatever we can to make this accessible for a congregation. I mean, that's our goal. And then to share your story to inspire others.
I've got a question for Max and Raphael. Ever since the IRA got out, and I've found that it's very difficult to find groups that are going to do the kind of work that you guys are doing in walking people through the process of getting the solar, getting the contractor, getting the rebate or tax credit. So the question is how many more groups right now are there out there that you're aware of that are doing this kind of community organizing to get people an opportunity to get take advantage of the energy efficiency, the solar, the wind, whatever batteries nowadays. So all of that, where do people look? Is there some place that they can look to see if there's some kind of what we call a sort of walking people through the process and making sure that everything goes right?
Yeah. So I'll let Raph jump in here too in a second. But one of the things that I know right off the dome is that you're mentioning one of the biggest issues, which is the lack of the lack of knowledge. It's not necessarily a lack of the ability for these programs to be out there. It's a lack of knowledge. So like one of the things that I've experienced is I don't know who's familiar with Eagle in here. And there's another one, Green Home Institute. Both are really large organizations, green organizations that have a desire to help folks. But and I've been in more than multiple webinars over the course of the last year that have walked folks through different parts of applying for federal dollars and how to get the tax credits. And they've been training contractors in how to train homeowners and how to get those very tax credits. Now, the thing is that those spaces are mainly filled up by folks like me who are in a full-time job in a green organization. The connector point is having another organization to be able to connect them to that, or to be able to have people that are trained that care about the community and be involved with residents. So the long-winded way of what I'm trying to say is kind of what me and Jennifer have been talking about this entire time, is like at Soulardarity, we want to become experts in exactly what you're asking about, so that when I do go talk to my neighbor down the street on Colorado in Highland Park, I can tell them, hey, did you know XYZ? These are how you do these things. This is how I can help you walk through this. And I do know some of the other organizations like We Want Green 2 over there in 48214 zip code, who is a Black-owned green initiative, who are doing incredible home repair and weatherization work that I'm sure takes people and homeowners through that process as well. As well as a few others that I know that are that bridge, if you will. You've got like organizations that are willing to explain some of these things, but a lot of the people aren't seeing that bridge. So we're looking to be that, and so are some others. That's what comes to my mind, but I know that Ralph might know of a few others that are specifically doing that work. And I just want to make one shout out. There is a wonderful few people that have really dedicated their time and energy to trying to be that bridge, even as individuals. We work with Stacey Grant, who's an incredible individual who is trying. She tries her best to become an expert in the federal confusion so that she can be a bridge to all of the community-based organizations and individuals to help them be able to apply. And I just wanted to give her a shout out because she's awesome. But Raph might have a few more answers on some other orgs, but that's my initial thought to that question.
Yeah, for those who may be curious, more specifically, Stacey Grant is a development consultant in her own firm called Path Consulting. So give her a Google search here. Let me just at least put her name and her firm here. There we go. So, and ironically, her last name is Grant. So there are various different organizations, or at least community organizations in Detroit, or at least Southeast Michigan. One of them being, the Ecology Center. The Ecology Center, which is based in Ann Arbor, they are experienced when it comes to interacting with, the various different kinds of benefits that you can receive when it comes to home energy efficiency, rebates, or not rebates, but tax credits. I keep saying rebates because it really should be a rebate. But then when it comes to, like the bigger stuff, like installing your home solar, the Ecology Center can help a little bit, but they're more on like community-wide projects, or tackling with community-wide solutions. So there's an organization called EcoWorks, which is based in Detroit, and they're also incredibly knowledgeable when it comes to, at least on the individual experience, the residential homeowner experience. They can at least, put in touch with you some online resources that will walk you through that step or through that process. So the EcoWorks Detroit, oh, thank you, Max. I appreciate that. Their website is in the chat. And then Odessa put in We Want Green 2's website. So We Want Green 2, one of the things that I love about the organization is the executive director, Mama Gloria, is very much the definition of on the ground, because she wouldn't just be able to tell you how to navigate the process and to wade into the already pretty thick market of solar installers, but she'll be able to put you in touch with solar installers that are mission aligned, that are values aligned, and that aren't going to be sucking you into a extractive contract like we are reading some stories about in the news that come into Michigan. And also, she has a very high standard when it comes to home energy assessments. she actually, in the Whole Homes, whole community initiative that we're a part of with her, which is the $8 million settlement from the IRP. She, when we were talking about, home energy assessment standards, somebody mentioned the state, and she said, no, that's garbage. We have a much higher standard that we want to put these communities in need, these residents in need for. So she would be able to connect you with that. So I strongly recommend going to some of these organizations. But all in all, when it comes to like organizations that are hyper focused and specific on getting you through these processes and holding your hand throughout it, there are not that many that are out there. And I blame it on the nonprofit industrial complex, because it's very difficult to be able to establish operating funds for your organization, as well as program or project funds simultaneously, without kind of like pulling you in multiple different directions. And I think it's okay that a nonprofit organization is focusing on multiple issues, because like Max, very stinkily described, with the onion, it's a very complex and intersectional issue that we deal with here. But yeah, there are not that many that are very, very hyper focused, but collectively we are lifting each other up to help individuals be able to navigate through that complex process.
Thank you. Yeah, shout outs to Mama Gloria. She's amazing, and she's another person that's been in this work and in her neighborhood for a very, very long time. I wanted to give Anita a moment to make an announcement about the Bioneers Conference that's coming up at near the end of October. She is the co-chair. So Anita, please take a moment to do that.
I think there might be one more question over there from Mary Jo, but the hand might be blending into the.
Oh,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Jennifer. And what gives me hope is, certainly since I've been working on Bioneers, I'm realizing that there are thousands of organizations working for a higher cause. And it really, I know that it might sometimes feel like you're in a vacuum, but all of those points of light are lifting us all up, and we can see it. And I certainly am, having done body work over 30 years and energy healing, I always go to the energy. And right now there is a higher vibration on the horizon. We just have to know it, step into it, stand in your power. And I entered this year on New Year's Eve affirming that I would be open to infinite possibilities. And then all of a sudden I'm a co-chair for Bioneers. and in this past week, another, well, I've been working on that, and that's coming up. But in terms of just sharing about the energy of it, of intending to rise to a higher ground, the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom have invited me to speak briefly, and Starhawk is also on that program. It's going to be a Zoom. It's a national presentation on the summer solstice. And I'm like, this is Ruby's ish. I'm so excited, But as far as Bioneers is concerned, it's coming up in October, the 17th and the 18th. Some of the more interesting tours that we have on board this year, we're going to have a tour to Be Shroomed. If you haven't heard of it, it's an incredible business that's growing mushrooms of all kinds over on the east side, and they do quite a wonderful presentation. I went and visited there. They know a lot about mycelium, and they are really excited to explain to young people who will probably be on that tour. We're going to tour Avalon Village, and I'm excited about that because of all the many different aspects that I learned that are happening there in the different houses. It's not just like for kids after school. They're doing a lot of parent support as well. The Detroit Sound Conservancy, Jara McKinney is going to do a tour and focalize on music of the movement, the Motown music of the civil rights and social justice movement. And I think this is pronounced Asibara or Asibara Forest. They have an interesting thing. They have a challenge of trying to get people to be outdoors for 1,000 days or 1,000 hours each year. And so it'll be interesting to see what kind of challenge they set forth to the people on that tour in terms of, like, even though it's fall, it doesn't mean you have to just stay in the house all season. And then Bhavana, Sarah Adae, she is a Buddhist, and she went through Still Point Seminary, and she has a field temple, which is completely outdoors, even through the winter season. But it'll be in October, and she's going to do a walking meditation. So I'm encouraging people to take advantage of the tours. I feel like in the past, the tours have been promoted just for the youth, but we are going to be intentional about inviting our elders and youth to experience these places, and then come back to campus and have some food. Rocket Man will provide some music for us during the lunch hour. So, and then we have Terry Frazier is going to be sharing his movie, A Debt Owed, about the history of reparations. That's later, that's one of the learn shops in the afternoon on day 2. So I'm excited, you know, to be part of the planning and to share with folks like you, because I mean, there might be stinky layers, but there's a lot of good vibes and hugs and elevated energy, and we just have to keep on doing what we do, because we can't do otherwise. So thank you for the moment. I did put a link to our website early in the chat, but it's you can just put search Great Lakes Pioneers Detroit 2024, and it's and you will get to our site and see what our mission statement is, and some of our history. If you go all the way back to glbd.org, you will find the original story with Sister Paula and Sister Gloria. Sister Gloria is actually going to do a learn shop for us this year. So we're excited.
Well, I'm excited too. I was already excited, but now I'm more excited. and Ruby, you're the perfect person. It makes so much sense. And knowing you, I have the treat of knowing all those special connections and relationships that you have with some of those folks that you mentioned, and
Yes,
that you brought into this work is going to be really powerful and special. So thank you. It's 8:06, and it's still, I think somebody said tonight is the last night where we'll have a 8 o'clock sunset. So I think we just missed that, but we're kind of sunsetting together in this evening, and this is nice. But I wanted to I want to give one more opportunity if anybody has any questions for Anita, Jennifer, Max, Raphael. And also I wanted to give them a chance to answer that question for me. What brings you both hope and joy in this time? It's so meaningful to me that those of you who showed up tonight did, because there's so much going on, and a lot of what's going on is election work. And folks, especially in Unitarian Universalist congregations, are really, really filling their time with election work, which is really, really important. And so many of us that are living on and engaged in frontline work can't stop for the elections. You know, that woman who's living without electricity for a year, she can't stop and organize or even think about, you know, the elections. And so it means a lot when people show up to hear from folks that are doing this work and who are living this life. And so I appreciate you all for being here. Any final questions? Mary Jo?
Yeah, a couple of comments. First of all, Anita, as I was listening to you, I was thinking about the fact that tonight we've talked about energy in different ways. And I loved how you brought in this other idea about energy. And this is all related somehow. Solar, street lights, and then the energy that you talked about. I really appreciated that somehow that all connected tonight. And it's been a while since I've attended the Bioneers Conference, and I'm really inspired now to look that up for this year. What a great lineup you're going to have. And then Jennifer, I really appreciated the stories that you told tonight. I mean, this is the boots on the ground kind of stuff like Max is doing and you all are doing. And I was struck by how sometimes even just a small amount of money can make quite a difference. Like the church that got a couple of solar lights to light the food pantry. I mean, how do you put a dollar value on that, right? And then another group that gets inspired to join forces to provide a solar solution for someone else. I love that. So keep telling those stories, and I appreciated hearing them tonight from all of you.
Yeah, the pictures and the faces were great, Jennifer. I appreciated that. And I love to think about energy, democracy, people power, and the way you can kind of interchange all of those words and think about the power and the energy that we hold as individuals and when we get ourselves together. So this is that moment. Well, before the question, there's also been a lot of conversation today about community congregational hubs. And it's been something that I just want to highlight because I'm excited that Unitarian Universalist churches are starting to think of themselves more as a community hub for the community that their congregation sits in outside of the building. I think for a long time, UU churches have thought a lot about our church community being the community with inside the walls. And now I love to hear more that we're thinking beyond our walls. And even when I was thinking about Horst's question, how exciting would it be if all Unitarian Universalist churches were hubs around energy democracy, and we were the place where people could come to be led these steps with who to connect with and how to go and who's, you know, thinking along the same mission as we are, and what a beautiful thing that would be. So, Max, I'll have you go start first since you started tonight. What brings you hope and joy in this time?
Well, I'm gonna be a pastor again. I'm gonna go back to the original metaphor. So we got the onion, we got the sticky layers. It's been, it's been considered a couple of times, but when you cook that onion, it goes in a lot of great things. When you put that onion under heat, beautiful things happen, instead of bad things. And so one of the things that gives me hope is the community that I'm in. There is never defeatism. There is never going to be a wall that we approach where we're not going to say, oh, well, we could go over it. Oh, well, can't go over it. All right, well, then we're going to go around it. Okay, we can't go around it. All right, well, then we're going to go under it. Okay, well, we can't go under it. Okay, we're going to go through it then. That something is going to happen to that wall. There's never going to be a moment where we're like, well, we'll just turn back then. So I think that what gives me the biggest hope is the members, the residents, and the folks that are completely unwilling at every stop. I mean, there's tons of reasons. We see the reasons all the time to be totally and completely dejected as it relates to who has the money, who's got the power. But there's never defeatism. And so it goes back to the onion. You cut up the layers and put it under heat, turns into something awesome. So that would be my answer. That's what gives me hope, for sure.
Thank you for that. Love those sweet onions. Jennifer.
Yeah, what gives me hope is all of you. Seeing the spirit of teamwork and collaboration of all the Soulardarity folks, so inspiring. And then, Horse's question, to me, our role is to breathe life into the hopes and dreams of the congregations who hold the vision. So I'm inspired by you. I'm inspired by what already is there, whether you've implemented your vision or not, but that you hold that commitment and you speak it and you're willing to stand up for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you all for being with us tonight. I am gonna get everything great out of the, that's so funny. I thought those were little pizzas coming from Max's celebration.
It could be. Very well could be.
Pizza sounds
Or
really
it could
good
be
right
that
now.
you just need to eat dinner.
That's probably it. And pizza sounds really good and easy. Thanks, Max. I think that I as I promised, I will collect everything great. And there's so much you guys are keeping me busy on sharing this, all these wonderful things from the chat. And Jennifer's going to share some more things with me. So I'll probably get those out tomorrow with the recording of this. Actually, give me a few days because I got to work with my website person to get this up on our web and our YouTube. And I'll share the link through our YouTube. And I encourage you all to share it out to other people who you think would learn from this experience. Again, particularly highlighting Soulardarity as our Unitarian Universalist suggested plate collection in Michigan. Woo-hoo! And hopefully I'll see you all again back next Thursday or in Avalon Village for the MEJC conference at the end of the month, or at the Ann Arbor Church for the worship service. Good things ahead. Peace.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Much love.